So, hey everybody, merhaba, as they would say in Turkey. So, welcome to our Saturday meditations. So, today I thought we could maybe hold a focus on the Sufi tradition that first emerged with Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi, as he's known in Turkey, or just simply Rumi, as he's usually known in the West. Um, so the Sufi tradition arises from the Muslim tradition and is the more mystical aspect of that, is the path of the heart. It's the recognition and embodiment of love in all its beauty, in all its different aspects and forms. And one of the things that Rumi would say is um, God and love are interchangeable. So we talk about God, we could talk about love. It's the same thing. And sometimes in Western traditions, people tend to have very sterile ideas about God or the universe. It's either overly simplistic, overly hierarchical, overly scientific, and it loses that quality of living beauty and sublimity and just the constant change and movement of life, all being part of this grand current of love. So, one of the metaphors that's used a lot is the river or the ocean, and flowing back into the ocean, becoming the ocean, and then the ocean becoming the drop. So, these are like three different phases for this journey of awakening. So, many of the poems of Rumi, for instance, and many of the Sufi poets can talk about Hafiz and Khalid and so many others. The first phase is the longing. It's that longing for union. It's that place where you feel yourself as separate from God, the universe, separate from this flow of divinity that moves through all things. And in that separation, there's longing. And then the next phase is where the drop actually emerges into the ocean and becomes the ocean. Separation ends. And part of this is that your sense of personal self, or your sense of being separate from the world around you, what we call duality, um, also begins to fade away. There's less of a sense of judgment and blame and resistance, because you see that you are not separate from the world, and there's a deeper quality of trust, awareness, and surrender. So the drop surrenders into the great ocean. And then the third phase is when the ocean enters into the drop. And this is a phase of power. So this is where you enter into the experience of divinity, but divinity embodied in this personal self and through this personal self. And this divinity then has a way of manifesting itself in the world. So this world is not separate from the world of spirit. And so as the ocean, we are responsible to manifest this grandness of beauty and life in the world of action, in the world of human interaction, in the world of nature, in the world that we um, carry ourselves from birth to death, sometimes painfully, sometimes beautifully and joyfully. And so within the heart of pain, within all the despair, within all the fear, there's that river of life that provides um, hope and the experience of love, the experience of beauty, the experience of oneness. So, so this is essentially the essence of the Sufi tradition, is the experience of wholeness, of love, going through these three stages. And it's not that we're permanently going to move through one, two, and then settle in three. It's a constant movement. And when we get stuck in one, we can remember two, and then we can strive to become three. And so, this journey of life is a journey of alchemy and mastery. Alchemy is simply shifting out of the perspective of the personal self into the experience of the divine self. And this experience of the divine self then becomes part of our daily walk. It becomes part of how we live our lives from heart, where heart and mind and spirit and body unify as one and become one with the earth, one with life, one with nature. And from that perspective, there's nothing to fear because the universe is seen as friendly and the universe is experienced as an aspect of you. You are the universe. So, what I'd like to do is maybe read through some of Mevlana's poems or Rumi's poems that reflect some of these different stages. So, first, I want to welcome you all. Oh, Shan, from my friend from South Africa, thank you for joining us. And then there's a lot of you who've been coming every week. So Paula, Karen, Sushina, Linda, Anna, Marianne, Rena, and others that I don't see on the chat. RD, Third Coast. So how many of you, I'm just curious, how many of you are aware of the Sufi tradition, have been walking this path or connecting with the spirit of the heart as Mevlana teaches. Sometimes he is known as this mystical poet, but he's so much more than a poet. It's poetry that's taken to the next level of alchemical experience. So in Turkey, where I spent about 5 years, he's seen as a master. Just as in the West, Jesus is seen as a master, or in the Eastern nations, Krishna or Babaji may be experienced and seen as these masters. In every tradition, a master is one who has unified themselves, unified the personal self with the universal self. And so this poetry actually helps us to travel that path, the path with heart. So the heart is the seat of the emotions. It's also the seat of the soul. It's also the seat of our connectedness with all the forces of life within nature and beyond. So interesting that if you take the word heart and just allow it to reveal itself, at the center is listening, the ear, EAR, and then along with that is the art, ART. So to hear, with the listening ear becomes part of the art of life, and that connects you with the earth, which is, if you take the first letter of the heart and place it at the end, you have the earth. So interwoven into the heart are all these different meanings. Um, the the term that the Sufis use to represent our grounding is who. So it's like in the Vedic tradition, it's Om. Om is like your expansion into universal awareness. Who is the embodiment of universal awareness into form. So it's that anchor. So the gift of the Vedic tradition has been to open up and merge into the great ocean. The gift of the Sufi tradition is to allow the ocean to merge into the drop and embody itself on this earth. So, hey Miriam, very true and beautifully expressed who Rumi was. Thank you. Um, Frequency, Girl, Etienne, Alina. Yeah, thank you for joining me here. There's often a lot of my Turkish friends that have been joining me as well, so this is especially for you. When I was in Turkey, it was like some of the best years of my life, connecting with the heart of the land, the spirit of the people, the ancientness of the culture, the power of the elements and nature, and just the enormous gift of these prophets. Um, Foremost among them being Mevlana, and the whole dervish tradition, the Mevlevi tradition. There's just so much a part of the fabric of Turkish life, yeah, in so many ways. So let me start with just reading a few poems here. Of your spirit. By Allah, I long to escape the prison of my ego and lose myself in the mountains and the desert. These sad and lonely people tire me. I long to revel in the drunken frenzy of your love and feel the strength of Rustum in my hands. I'm sick of mortal kings. I long to see your light. With lamp in hand, the sheikhs and the mullahs roam the dark alleys of these towns, not finding what they seek. You are the essence of the essence, the intoxication of love. I long to sing your praises, but stand mute with the agony of wishing in my heart. So, a lot of these poems reflect this agony, this longing, this wishing, feeling separate, and it's like intolerable. After a while, it's like it's just not enough to roam this land, seeking through dark alleys with the normal pleasures of what we call the world or reality. Um, so the first thing that happens is the awakening of this longing. And many of us go through phases of this where times we become really a little bit discontent and um, distant from ourselves. We become a bit inoculated to this essence of being. And so we go through this phase, longing to sing your praises but standing mute, longing to reveal this beauty but feeling miserable, longing to see the wholeness but feeling fragmented and traumatized by life. So we pass through this, and then we enter into this great ocean. And one of the, let's see, Okay, this is kind of a transitional one. Caught in the fire of love. My heart is on fire. In my madness, I roam the desert. The flames of my passion devour the wind and the sky. My cries of longing, my wails of sorrow are tormenting my soul. You wait patiently, looking into my intoxicated eyes. You accept my passion with the serenity of love. You are the master of existence. One day I shall be a lover like you. Come to me, I am your lover. Come to my side. I will open the gate to your love. Come settle with me, let us be neighbors to the stars. You've been hiding so long, aimlessly drifting in the sea of my love. Even so, you've always been connected to me, concealed, revealed, in the known, in the unmanifest. So notice now that uh, the, there's been a shift of identity. So it's not the drop speaking to the ocean now, it's the ocean speaking to the drop. So when it says, I'm your lover, it's the ocean, it's that infinite consciousness, that primordial self that's now speaking to you as the separate ego personality, a human being. Come to my side. I will open the gate to your love. Come settle with me. Let us be neighbors to the stars. So let's climb out of that separateness into that starry consciousness. You've been hiding so long, aimlessly drifting in the sea of my love. Even so, you've always been connected to me, concealed, revealed in the known, in the unmanifest. I am life itself. You've been a prisoner of a little pond. I am the ocean and its turbulent flood. Come merge with me. Leave this world of ignorance. Be with me. I will open the gate to your love. So, we're leaving the prison of the little pond, of the little self, of the perspectives that are part of this little self, feeling separate, feeling trapped, feeling victimized, feeling lost with these turbulent floods. Come leave this world of ignorance. Come merge with me. Be with me. I will open the gate to your love. So it's like, we have this idea about love, that love is something that is generated from the human heart. And therefore it's, something you can receive or give. One of the poems from Rumi also says, God, which is love, God is love, lover, and beloved. So it's the three forms. It's lover is the form that comes from a separate self. I'm seeking. Beloved is that which I'm seeking. It's the ocean. And then love itself. God is love. I am that, and I'm manifesting that through this open vehicle with open arms that I call myself as a human. So Ishkalama Budlela, God is love, lover, and beloved. Then we find one reflecting the third phase. Okay, here's one. Do you love me? A lover asked his beloved, do you love yourself more than you love me? The beloved replied, I have died to myself, and I live for you. I've disappeared from myself and my attributes. I am present only for you. I have forgotten all my learnings, but from knowing you, I have become a scholar. I have lost all my strength, but from your power, I am able. If I love myself, I love you. If I love you, I love myself. So this is, the ultimate reflection of becoming the ocean. You are the ocean. If I love myself, I love you. If I love you, I love myself. The drop has surrendered to the great ocean, and there's no more separateness, no more duality, no more a distinction between myself and the other. And this is then the gateway to becoming the ocean, reflecting that in the drop. So so this is not going to happen overnight. We can open to this great ocean, learn to live in this ocean, learn to continually die to the idea of separateness until the ocean becomes its own reality. And then the ocean comes through the drop. So here's one: dying to love. Die, die, die in this love. It's that same metaphor of the moth entering into the flame, into the candle flame, and just dying to itself. So it becomes the flame. The flame devours it. And so here the flame is love. So die in this love. If you die in this love, your soul will be renewed. Die, die, don't fear the death of that which is known. If you die to the temporal, you will become timeless. Die, die, cut off those chains that hold you prisoner to the world of attachment. Die, die, die to the deathless, and you will be eternal. Die, die, and come out of this cloud. When you leave the cloud, you will become the effulgent moon. Die, die, die to the din and the noise of mundane concerns. In the silence of love, you will find the spark of life. And here's a beautiful one. I am and I am not. I'm drenched in the flood which has yet to come. I'm tied up in the prison which has yet to exist. So as long as we're tied into this timeline of past, present, and future, we're still in prison. Anything that's linked with this linear time is a prison. So we're looking at the future in fear or in trepidation. Why? So I'm tied up in the prison which has yet to exist. Not having played the game of chess, I'm already checkmated. Not having tasted a single cup of your wine, I'm already drunk. And so now we're moving out into an experience of dissolution, becoming drunk with the divine, drunk with love, drunk with the unknown. So you were entering into duality, but not claiming it as our identity. We're walking in this world of appearances, but we're not identifying with them. We can see past them and see the truth of who we are. I no longer know the difference between image and reality, like the shadow, I am, and I am not. Yeah, so there's I'm sure you're all familiar with this poetry. There's so much there. Um, I was selling. So there's a message from Sean. This reminds me of Brahma is Sachitananda, God is love, truth. Okay, let's see. Truth, consciousness. Okay, so God is love. Truth. I think he's trying to make a connection between these three aspects of Sachitananda. Sachitananda is the Vedic term for um, primordial consciousness. It's Sat is uh, presence, truth. Chit is consciousness. Ananda is unendingness, sometimes translated as bliss. Um, so God is love, which is truth. Lover is consciousness. Beloved is bliss. So love, lover, and beloved, truth, consciousness, and bliss. So the three aspects. Um, when Edith is saying song with Rumi's poem Desire, I'm not familiar with that one. But we could check that out on YouTube. So there's so much of this. You can find it so easily these days. That's the nice thing about the internet and YouTube, and it's not such an esoteric thing anymore. It's always available, and it's in the collective consciousness more and more so. So this teaching for me, where wait, okay, Edith says she posted the link with that song. Oh, I don't see it, Edith. Where is it? Okay, maybe it's on its way. Yeah, so this is really a teaching about, it's a psychological teaching as well as a spiritual teaching. If you're identified with the personal self, we get identified with the stories of our lives, with the dramas, with right and wrong and blame, and trying to prove ourselves right, and trying to justify our existence, and it's all about victim consciousness, because victimization is an aspect of duality. You cannot not be victimized if you're seeing the world in terms of opposites, right and wrong, or good and bad, or dark and light. And the victim perpetrator polarity is a part of duality. So you're going to be both the perpetrator and the victim. So anytime you're experiencing yourself as a victim, there's a shadow aspect of yourself that projects outwards as a perpetrator, and then eventually attracts it into manifestation, which you experience in the physical world. So the cycle then continues. Victim becomes perpetrator, perpetrated feels victimized, and the journey goes on. And all of us have been cast in these roles. All of us have experienced this constant back and forth. And that's the drop consciousness that we are letting go. Okay, YouTube doesn't show that link, Edith. All right, so then as we start the journey of alchemy, we realize that I am not separate from you. Love unites us both. And love not just as an emotional quality, but as the existential nature of divinity. It's like the one manifests as love, which can be experienced as a quality, but is more than a quality. It's the law of existence. The Incas referred to this as aini, reciprocity, the nature of life. So it's movement, and it's constantly changing movement back and forth and forever. And when we put, when we stop that movement out of fear, so there's a movement of love, for instance, we stop that movement by holding on, by creating expectations, by limiting somehow the nature of love. And then it becomes personal. So then it becomes my love and your love, and I getting more than I'm receiving, or am I receiving more than I'm giving, then it becomes conditional. Unconditioned love has nothing to do with the personal self. It cannot be experienced by the personal self unless the drop begins its journey into the ocean. And then divine love in manifestation is something else. And this is the power of love to change the world. Um, so when Rumi's Mevlana is perceived as a master, the ability to enter into the heart of darkness and transform it, that's the alchemy. And that's the third phase. That's when the ocean enters into the drop and transforms it. Um, so it's a journey. It's a journey of awareness. It's a journey of practice. It's a journey of surrender. Um, it's a journey that requires a spiritual as well as emotional maturity, and therefore takes time. Um, in this journey, there's no one to blame. There's nothing to fear. There's no need to manipulate, um, and there's no victim. So we see through different eyes. We see through the eyes of love. We see through the eyes of God, and therefore reality is different. As we perceive, so it is. So reality is not something that's stuck out there in the world that we are responding to without conscious interaction. Reality is something we create within us, which is then reflected outside us. That's alchemy. This is the third phase. This is when love enters into form and manifests new worlds. And this is how we create the new earth. Okay, so Edith says YouTube is not showing it. Just search for Deepak Chopra featuring Demi Moore, A Gift of Love by Amit Raj. So anything else? Any other comments? What spaces does this touch for you? I remember in my first book, Doorway to Eternity, I wrote a poem called Garden of the Flames, or something of that sort. And it was about this whole journey. And at that time, I hadn't really studied the Sufi tradition so much, but it was just something that became more and more alive as I started to enter the path with heart. Carlos Castaneda speaks about the path with heart. And he speaks about it from a different context. He speaks about it from a place of discernment. It's like, what can you discern as your next step in this moment? That's the path of heart. And here now, Rumi is taking it to the next level, where the heart actually is the presence of the divine within you. Not just emotion, but the presence of the divine. And you're listening to this. You manifest this in your life more and more. It becomes part of your energy field. It becomes part of your thoughts. It becomes part of your emotional nature. And then it becomes part of what you do in the world. So it's not that you have to do something specific or different from what you've been doing. Maybe so, maybe not. But what you bring into it, the presence that comes through in the doing. So we are human beings manifesting as human doings. So let's not forget that being, which is our state of presence, Sat Chit Ananda, the divine presence that then moves through time and space, moves through third dimensional reality, and it enters into the world of duality to transform. So that's when we become alchemists. So this poem is about this, something about I enter the. In order to enter this garden, I must burn away all the things that are dear to me, all the people that I've ever known, all the places I've ever been, all the addictions I've ever had, all the ideas I've ever held dear, all the um, things I've identified with as myself, all my accomplishments and successes, all my failures and pain, letting go of all these identities, burning them away, stripping them away until there's nothing left. And, and then the poem ends with such a small price to pay for the garden of the soul. So it's like, what is this, the soul? Um, the soul is multidimensional. The soul experiences no judgment. The soul experiences its oneness with all of nature and with divine consciousness. And the soul is also power. So when people talk about the threefold flame, love, wisdom, and power, we sometimes forget power. It's it's very fashionable to talk about the love aspect of God, but we sometimes forget that power can also be a reflection and is a reflection of God. It's just that we've been so used to the manipulation of power, to the obsession with power, to the misuse of power, abuse of power, that we've forgotten the right use and the, the presence of power. So it's something that can move mountains as needed. So love and power together become wisdom. So wisdom comes from not just one or the other. It comes from holding power and love together as one energy. And that's when we become the ocean within the drop. The power of the ocean enters into the drop. So first you have the longing for union, then you have the peace of becoming one with the ocean, and then you experience the power of the ocean as it moves through your individual identity to create, to become an agent of change in this world. Garden of my soul, I love this poem. It is written on my bedside since many years with poems of Hafiz and Rumi. Oh, thank you, Miriam. Yeah, somewhere I have that book. I don't know exactly where it is now. And Linda says, Rumi's poems touch my heart so deeply. Thank you, Kiara, for deepening my understanding of them. And Paula says, I agree, true power comes with love and is different from force. Yeah, big difference. Some of you may be aware of that book by David Hawkins, Power versus Force. And I think that's part of what he's referring to. Force is it's power that is separate from the ocean. It's like trying to create something from that space of feeling separate, which is all fine, it's part of our journey too. But then power is when you don't have to put in so much effort. It's simply intention that manifests spontaneously and easily and powerfully. Oh, thank you, Miriam. So, part of the poem is I see a garden beyond the flames. To enter, I must burn everything I've ever known or loved, all ideas of separation and loss, even my yearnings for union. And that's a hard one. When that longing becomes so intense, sometimes we have a tendency to get stuck in that intensity and identify with the longing. But then we have to give it up. And only then can we actually enter into the ocean. Sometimes we're so identified with the bhakti. If it's like the bhakti quality, which is just the longing, um, can become a trap also. You're searching for God, you're seeking for love, but forgetting that you are God, that you are love. And so it's only in the surrender of that idea of separation and loss, even the yearnings for union, that must also burn away. And then you enter the garden beyond the flames. Sean says, you're right, we do tend to forget power. It's not a fear that makes us small, but a fear of our light and power. Yeah, that's from Marianne Williamson, isn't it? Um, there's a beautiful quote. Sometimes it's attributed to Nelson Mandela, but it originates from Marianne Williamson. Um, it's if someone can remember the exact words, just write it down. And then third coast says, yes, I think we are constantly trying to do things of action, but to just be and love unconditionally, relax and release, and to really slow down the daily pace is key to resonate and love and flow. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And then magically things happen more powerfully, more effectively than they could have happened if you're trying to make it happen through effort. So power has nothing to do with effort. It has to do with intention. And that intention then moves through human personality structures. It moves through the mental, emotional, etheric, and physical bodies, and then creates something magical. Okay, thank you, Edith. So, that quote, our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. So imagine that. It's we're frightened of letting go of our separate identity, of that darkness. Um, we are familiar with our darkness, and therefore we protect that against anything that might wish to come in or invade that sense of familiarity. That's why people tend to remain in relationships which are abusive or painful, or remain in work circumstances, or remain in belief systems that are limited simply because it's familiar. Um, Forgetting that that familiar has then become a trap. So, in the Sufi tradition, we are being constantly reminded to break out, use that longing as a means to chisel away into the great ocean, and then allow that great ocean to enter and flood this earth with love. And there's nothing left of this personal self. Then love can come through wholefully. Wholefully, is that a word? Wholesomely and fully. So people sometimes talk about presence. What does it mean to be present? For one thing, presence has to do with being present. Being present means that you're not locked into a linear timeline where the present moment is a minuscule, um, you know, a minuscule moment of experience, where the past and the future uh, have become your reason for existence, or your identification with yourself. So the past is the subconscious history of who you are. It's what's created you and built you and shaped you for all this, for all the years of this life. And that's important. But without that, um, you'd have to relearn everything every single day. It's not very useful. So the past becomes a subconscious um, matrix that sustains us in this world of embodiment. But if we get locked into the past, we lose our ability to actually experience this present moment. Then we're trapped in the past. We're responding in the same way that we've responded before. We climb inside these ruts and circle inside these grooves, forgetting that we can trust this moment just for what it is. Trust the universe, the great unknown. So we become locked into what's known and lose sight of the unknown. And the unknown is the gateway into presence. So letting go of everything we think we know, everything we think we are, and entering into that great unknown, that great mystery of life. That's then when you join the great ocean and comes through and becomes who you are. So Sushina says, thank you, Kira, for this theme of the day. The Sufi path is beauty, and beauty is a protection. Up, down, forward, back, right, left, inside, out. Yeah, isn't there a Native American prayer? May beauty walk before me, beauty behind me, beauty above me, beauty below me. May I walk in beauty all around me. So this is also alchemy. As above, so below, as within, so without. To truly understand that is the path of beauty, is the path of heart. Fearless presence. Let's surround ourselves with beauty in every way. That's an act of courage. There's a lot of things that don't look beautiful, and we can easily fall into that trap of making beauty the opposite of ugly. And it's not about that. It's when you can see the beauty in the midst of ugliness. That's what we're talking about. I'm reminded of this story from the Mughal times in ancient India, where one of the Mughal kings commissioned all of his artists to paint something of beauty. And so the artists, they all came up with their beautiful paintings of magical landscapes and colors and beauty in all its external forms. And then one artist had these scenes of war and unrest and lots of things happening as they normally do in this world of duality. And then in one corner of the painting there was a mother bird nesting on the branch of a tree, um, feeding her young ones. Um, that was, in the midst of war and violence, this drop of just normality, peace. That takes perspective to see that in the midst of everything, to feel at home in the midst of this broken world. Um, and that's the painting that won the prize. So it's a good lesson for us. We don't have to change the world before we see beauty. We change ourselves and then the world changes in response. Third coast, beauty is a frequency. Yeah. So many of you are familiar with the scale of consciousness in David Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. And the scale is 0 to 1000. 0 is guilt, shame, it's reflected in ugliness and fear. And then as you climb up along the scale, you come to courage, you come to beauty, you come to peace, you come to love, you come to oneness, and you come to divine presence, you come to enlightenment. All these on the scale um, feed the heart. Everything below a certain point, everything that's locked in stories of shame and guilt and fear and blame, all those take away from love, all those take away from presence. And then when we come back into presence, we discover that love is everything and everywhere. It's not about the circumstances. It's not about the right brain or the left brain dividing things up into good and bad. And you love the good and you hate the bad. Um, it, it transforms by seeing differently. So this is the Sufi path. And obviously it's not something we can do overnight. It takes practice, it takes discipline, it takes remembrance, daily remembrance, moment by moment remembrance, until that remembrance becomes presence. And that presence becomes love, a reflection of love, a reflection of God. Sean says, beauty, stillness, sacredness. To me, it reveals itself when we are quiet. It's like sitting before a still ocean in the early morning, but it's always there underneath, even in the storm. Even in the storm. And the heart of the storm, the eye of the hurricane, is a still point. And we find that, we can discover that energetically and physically in silence. So silence is not something that's the absence of noise. Silence is a presence of self. So even in the midst of traffic and the emotional noise of our daily life, silence can be present. Silence is presence. So that's a little bit about the Sufi path. So maybe before we end, let's take a few moments and just go into that stillness and let stillness speak. Let the ocean come through. So bring your attention into your heart. Become aware of your breath. The circularity of your breath. The breath connects what's inside and what's outside. idea of the separate self begins to dissolve. And as you breathe, bringing your attention, keeping your attention in your heart, you enter into that still point, that silence from which all things are born and all things return to die and to be born again. Entering into that great mystery, deleting the need to understand, the need to control, the need to change anything or anyone. Dissolving guilt and shame and fear. Just letting that stillness take over and pervade the entire body, every cell, all the way through the nervous system, and then out beyond the subtle nervous system into the etheric, emotional, mental bodies. And the deeper you enter into the heart, the deeper you're entering into that space all around you, the spaciousness of being. That secret cave where divine presence can be found. That I am. And the deeper you enter into the stillness, the further out you expand into the universe. I am that. All of that. Here and now. Letting that great ocean now enter fully into this tiny little drop. I am that within human form. I am fully human, fully present, fully divine. I am love. So thank you for joining me today. A reminder that next Tuesday on Age of Pandora, um, it could be on the Above Duality channel, it could be on the Above and Beyond Duality channel. Hopefully on Above Duality, because that's the normal channel before it was axed by YouTube. So there was a 2 week, um, whatever it's called, closed down. It should be back up for next week. Our guest for next week is Elena Danan. Um, just an amazing being. She very clearly is in touch with her galactic presence and galactic families. And so it's listening for what they have to say for us today. Yeah, thank you, Paula. Thank you, Third Coast. Thank you, each of you, for being here and being willing to be present. So, see you next week. Blessings and love.